Hello everyone, I'm Errant Wizard and welcome back to Mass Effect. We just finished up our last mission on the hijacked freighter. We rescued a Alliance counselor who was in charge of biotics, and we saved him and arrested the hostage takers. So hopefully something good maybe will come of that. I don't know. We might find out we might find out more about that later on. But before we proceed with our hunt through the galaxy, I think it's time to head downstairs and have a talk with Kaiden. Now, we brought Kaiden with us on the last mission because he is a biotic. He's an L2 biotic, so he experiences a lot of the same side effects that those terrorists experience, and so he has to go through a lot of those same problems. And so we brought him along because he might have he had a little bit of insight, and you saw that he had he was able to talk to them and reason with them, and he helped us talk them down from killing their hostage. So let's go ahead and say hi and see what he has to say.
Do you have some time to talk now, Commander?
Of course, that's why we're here.
Of course. Have a seat.
We've played it pretty close to the book so far, but we're a long way from backup. We've got some tough calls to make. I'm just saying, try to leave yourself a way out. I've seen what cutting corners can do, and I'd hate to have that happen to you, Shepard. Commander.
Oh, little slip up there. It's been a long time since we talked with Kaiden, and as I mentioned way back then, Kaiden is one of the romance options for Shepard. Kaiden is the romance option for a female Shepard. Ashley is the romance option for a male Shepard. And then there's a third option, Dr. Tassoni herself, who we've only just briefly met. We haven't gotten to interact with her too much this playthrough. But we did learn about her, the Asari species, and how they can have children with any member of any species, regardless of gender. And so it's Dr. Tassoni's open as an option for either a male or a female Shepard. And I haven't decided, exactly who we're going to pick for this particular playthrough, so I don't think there's any particular harm in just sort of leaving our options open, as it were. So let's say, are you concerned for me? That seems like a pretty neutral dialogue option there.
It's a personal observation, Kaiden.
I don't want to step on anyone else's toes, especially if you're if I have misread your interests.
So this conversation does kind of come out of nowhere. But, now we kind of have to make a decision. Are we going to pursue Kaiden, or are we going to pursue Dr. Tassoni? The game doesn't let you choose both, unfortunately. Eventually, once we get farther into the plot, they will ask us to make a choice, and so we have to choose at that point. One or the other. We can't just have a space harem, as it were.
All right, Alenko. Off the record, permission to speak candidly, cross my heart and hope to die. What are you talking about?
Dr. Tassoni, ma'am. There's a lower deck rumor that she's interested in you as more than a source of Prothean data. She's a very interesting lady, to my tastes, but I never claimed to be big on alien culture.
All right. So, we can sort of tease him a little bit more.
You seem awfully worried about my personal affairs.
It's just that we don't have much downtime these days. I like being around you, but I don't want to take up your personal time.
This conversation is not going exactly the way I thought. That's okay. I can see how some people get a little miffed about the dialogue wheel sometimes. So if we say it's not like that, then we're basically saying, oh, we're just friends with Liara, which isn't exactly true. I think our shepherd is at the very least interested. So we could say I'm here. That's sort of saying we're agreeing with him. I don't need this aggravation. See, I don't really want to. I don't want to be mean about it. Well, let's go with this one, and maybe we can make a firmer decision later on.
Look, you didn't want to talk about Liara, did you? What's your real issue?
You're right. Sorry. It wasn't, Liara's not my main concern. I'm not questioning any decision you've made, Shepard. Let me be clear about that. It's just my experience that once someone lets something slide, it tends to pick up speed. You get my meaning?
What are you trying to get at, Kaiden?
You're talking about a particular example, aren't you?
You know the records about the biotic training out on Jump Zero? They're all classified because the Alliance made mistakes. After first contact, Kinetics was set up to track Element Zero exposures and develop implants for humans. Once we had an embassy on the Citadel, Kinetics could bring in experts instead of taking it slow.
So here we start to get a little bit of background on why the L2 implants might not have been... Why the L2 implants might have a lot of side effects, because it seems like they were trying to rush to try and catch up with the rest of the galaxy in terms of biotics.
Is there some reason we couldn't learn it on our own?
They didn't know where to start. Hell, it took a couple of years to even link biotics and EZO. Forget trying to get the kids to move stuff. They had trouble just helping them not break their own limbs. And their choice of teachers didn't help much.
Why? Who'd they bring in?
The only experts would have to be aliens.
Dead on. Turians, actually. That's why Kinetics kept it a secret. They were afraid of what people back home would think, asking the Turians for help when we just fought a war with them.
Yeah, that does seem a bit strange. I mean, the Asari would have been better. The Asari are well known for their biotic potential, and they're a much older species. So you'd think they'd have a lot more experience with this sort of thing.
The Asari would have been more acceptable than the Turians.
Yes, but the company didn't go through the Citadel. It would have made Earth look weak, so they discreetly hired some Turian mercenaries.
Oh, that doesn't sound well.
I'm sure Kinetics did what they thought was best.
It wasn't best for us. They brought in an ex-military Turian named Commander Vernus. To introduce himself, he liked to say, "I was at the helm of the dreadnought that killed your father." When I told him my dad wasn't in the war, he'd retired to Vancouver. My family had an inland home that matured to new beachfront. Vernus had it in for me after that. He cut corners, pushed hard. I mean, you either came out a Superman or a wreck. A lot of kids snapped. A few died. The point of all of this, I guess, is that when you cut corners, it's not always obvious who pays for it.
Okay, good advice, but why specifically are you telling me this?
So why are you telling me this? Is there something I can do to help you get over it?
I'm 32, Shepard. You don't serve as long as I have without coming to terms with yourself. You also learn that if someone is special to you, you help them. Try to keep them from making mistakes.
Special, eh?
Special, huh?
If I'm out of line, just say the word.
Okay, so here's where we have to... Well, again, see, we can... See, that Shepard does have a lot in common with Kate. She's a biotic. They're both in the military, but it's generally not a good idea for commanders to start having building romantic relationships with their subordinates. So what do we do here? Yeah, let's just waffle, and then we'll make a decision later.
Now isn't the ideal time. But I want to talk about this, Kaiden.
I get you, Shepard. I don't make a habit of complicating the chain of command. Just think about what I said.
Fair enough. And so then we get the regular options that we usually get with Kaiden. So I don't remember if we've spoken to him since we rescued Dr. Tassoni. So maybe he has something to add.
Just trying to get a sense of where the crew's at. Thoughts?
I've wasted enough of your time for now, Commander. We'll have time for personal debriefings later.
All right, that's the generic response he says when he doesn't have anything to say.
What's your opinion on the last mission?
Dr. Tassoni. She seems nice enough. I mean, if you like the bookish sort.
So we could ask her. That's just that's going to lead to a oh, do you like her that way? But we already know that she's not really his type. So
we'll talk later, Kaiden.
I'd like that.
Let's see if there's anyone else we haven't spoken to in a while. I don't know if Dr. Tassoni Liara actually has anything to say.
I get the feeling you want to ask me something, Commander.
I just wanted to talk.
Of course, Shepard. What did you want to talk about?
So I believe we asked her about Asari culture before. That's where she told us about how they form relationships with members of other species, and those relationships are generally kind of lopsided because they live for such a long time. The Asari do. But let's go ahead and ask her about her mother, Benezia.
Do you know why Benezia joined up with Saren?
I don't understand it. She was always outspoken about the need for the Asari to become more involved in shaping galactic events. Maybe she thought allying herself with Saren would somehow be for the greater good in the long run. At least I hope so.
Okay.
This hurts you, doesn't it?
None of this makes any sense to me. I have not spoken to Benezia in many years, but I know her, and this was not like her. Something changed.
Okay. So Liara is still hoping that her mother is still a good person, even though they haven't talked for a long time. And we know from talking with what is her name? The Asari we met on Pharos. Why can I not remember her name? But we learned from her that Benezia did join up to, not necessarily because she believed in what Saren was doing, but because she wanted to try and to temper his destructive ways. But she ended up getting falling under his weird hypnotic ways, just like she did. So yeah, we'll have to find out, what she was actually doing once we meet up with her again. So we've got a couple more crew members downstairs that we could talk to, but I think we've actually caught up with them quite a bit. So let's go ahead and do another mission real quick. Let's jump into the galaxy map here and see what else is out there. I believe there's one more system in this cluster for us to investigate.
Message coming in.
Oh, okay.
Patching it through.
Thank you for dealing with the hostage situation, Commander.
Sure.
Chairman Burns was quite impressed by the way you resolved the situation peacefully. Your assistance above and beyond the formal duties has been noted, Commander. Fifth Fleet out.
All right. Praise from Admiral Hackett. It's always good. Cool. So let's zoom back out. And yes, we have one more system in the Hades Gamma cluster. That's the DIS system. And the DIS system is we do have a mission here. One of the crime lords that Helena Blake wanted us to take out is here in the DIS system. Alright, so here we are in the DIS system. Of course, we've got to scan the system for goodies before we land on a planet. Let's do this one a little differently and start from the outside in. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll look at Raisha? Yeah, Raisha. Out here on the outside. Standard hydrogen helium gas giant with traces of sodium and ammonia. During the brief gold rush of Clinsal, a few companies established an infrastructure for helium-3 skimming and deuterium mining on Raisha's icy moons. When Clinsal proved to be less wealthy than expected, the facilities were stripped for parts and abandoned. Cool. So we hit a survey button. Some scans of the planet Raisha revealed an old unmanned shuttle. Your salvage team found Turian goods on board, all marked with the Trident colony insignia. Cool. So that's that other collection quest that I always forget about. Clinsal, that was... apparently there's a gold rush on Clinsal. Alright, so this is the planet we're going to land on for that mission, to take out that crime lord, so we'll come back to that. Yep, there's an asteroid here. Scans the asteroid to reveal deposits of lithium. Excellent. Gotta have lithium. Grammar. Grammar is an icy terrestrial with thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide and krypton. Its surface is mainly composed of frozen ammonia with deposits of tin and other light metals. When exposed to sunlight, Grammar's ammonia can melt, forming equatorial seas of toxic chemicals. This has allowed a profusion of simple fungus and lichens to evolve in the low-energy environment. A byproduct of their metabolism causes them to glow very faintly. While the lights of an individual is insignificant, large patches seem to reinforce the light of one another and are visible from space. Cool. And you can maybe see some of the patches of light here on the image of the planet behind it, which is pretty cool. But nothing for us to scan. Nerum. Nerum. I think it's Nerum. Nerum is a terrestrial world with a thin atmosphere of methane and argon. Its frozen surface is mainly composed of basaltic rock. Its most prominent feature is the Elos Rift Valley, a long volcanic divergent zone that stretches across half of the northern hemisphere. Cool. While scanning this planet, you detect a large amount of titanium on a nearby moon. Excellent. More metal. And then finally, Jartar. Jartar is a terrestrial world with a trace atmosphere of krypton and xenon. The surface is hot and mainly composed of unremarkable silicates. Occasional deposits of aluminum, magnesium, and other light metals can be found. Jartar is noted for the discovery of the Leviathan of Dis, the apparent corpse of a genetically engineered living starship. The Leviathan was found at the bottom of a crater by a Batarian survey team and estimated to be nearly 1 billion years old. It disappeared after a visit to the system by a Batarian dreadnought 20 years ago. Since then, the Batarians have steadfastly denied that the Leviathan existed at all, and all the more vociferously when shown recordings of the corpse made by Solarian researchers. Excellent. Now, a minor spoiler for later on in the series. This Leviathan of Dis does become mildly important later on in the series. But I think when they were making this first game, this was just an Easter egg to a mildly popular sci-fi show, Farscape, that was all about a group of runaways who were on a living starship called a Leviathan. And so I think that's what this is an Easter egg to and a reference to, but they do change it and make it more related to the overall story of the trilogy, which is pretty cool. So just remember that for when we get farther into the series, this Leviathan of Dis on this random planet in this random system. But let's go back to Clinsal. Clinsal has a thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide and ethane. Its first geological surveys were performed by Batarians and suggested areas of great mineral wealth. Human mining concerns spent billions of credits hustling to the distant system and sinking test bores to claim the system for humanity. But Clinsal had only an average level of mineral wealth, valuable but hardly worth the rush and expense. Meridia Industria, a small Mexican company hoping to strike it rich in their first extrasolar mining venture, had to file for bankruptcy protection. Investigation revealed the Batarian crew had deliberately falsified their surveys, hoping it would encourage human rivals to invest in a costly boondoggle. While unethical, this was not technically illegal, and the Batarian government disavowed the personal actions of a few misguided patriots. The planet is still littered with abandoned mining bases, which are often used as temporary meeting places for criminals. So another indication of the bad blood between the Batarians and the humans that's been going on for a couple decades now. But let's go ahead and head on down and see if we can't take out this crime lord.